I the a-hole for choosing to go on a trip with my girlfriend instead of taking care of my struggling brother's son? For context, my 24 male, brother Luke 31 male, his wife Emma 28 female, and their son Kyle 4 male moved to my city last year because Emma got a new job. They would occasionally ask me to watch Kyle because I work from home with very flexible hours. I personally do not like kids at all, but I was happy to do it at a time because I wanted to help them. It was not that often, maybe once or twice every 2 weeks, and Kyle was very well behaved. Now, the issue started near the end of last year when Luke decided to change careers. He was previously working remotely as well, but his new job required him to go to work as a lot more often and make substantially less money. This left them depending on me more and more to take care of Kyle. It went from once or twice every 2 weeks to around 3 days out of the week. To make matters worse, Kyle's behavior changed drastically. To be completely honest, I can barely stand a kid anymore, constantly running around and screaming while I'm trying to work, and just overall being a little turd. My sister-in-law Emma was over the other day picking up Kyle and made some comments about getting rid of some of the dangerous furniture in my house, like tables with glass edges and stuff, so that my home is safer for their son, and made a joke about baby-proofing my house because they're planning to have a daughter. This ticked me off, but I didn't say anything. The situation hit a breaking point last Friday when I was talking about the 1.5-week-long trip I was going on with my girlfriend on the 15th. Me and my girlfriend like to travel somewhere nice at least once a month. We could not the past couple months because of Kyle, but I promised my girlfriend we would go somewhere exotic for Valentine's. Upon hearing this, they got pretty mad, asking who was gonna take care of Kyle, and that I need to stop these childish trips, and that I need to take more responsibility because I'm an uncle now. I'm not gonna lie, after hearing this, I've freaking snapped. I said that their demon child isn't my responsibility, and I'm not just gonna give up my life because they did it without a rubber. It got pretty obscene from there and some horrible things were said. They left, and we are now no longer on speaking terms. My parents and Emma's parents are on their side and extremely angry at me for refusing to pull my weight. My parents said that this is my duty, and I should be sacrificing everything to help them. It honestly got me really down, and I've cried my eyes pretty much every day since seeing those messages from my family. I'm starting to wonder if I really should be taking more responsibility. Am I the a-hole for choosing my trips over my brother and nephew? Not the a-hole. Sounds like your and Emma's parents need to start doing their duty and watching their grandchild. If they're not willing to do that, all their huffing and puffing that you need to watch Kyle is just hot air. This is not your child, and you have no weight to pull. This just reeks of trying to gang up on you because you're the youngest and you're nice, and they think you're going to cave. Stay strong and keep your boundaries. As an uncle myself, the most responsibility we should be given is to tucker out the nieces and nephews at family gathering and nothing more. Emergency childcare, sure, but suddenly the third parent? Hell no. Sounds more like they think uncle is a free nanny in daycare. They abuse his willingness to help. The uncle has all the right in the world to take his girlfriend on a trip. He could have been a lot more thoughtful and could have managed to go to the in-laws for help. Sounds like the grandparents don't like to pull that weight in raising the grandkids. Not the a-hole. Stay strong in your decision. The fact that they are planning a second child with you as their childcare answer is scary. You need to make it clear that you don't run a daycare facility. Otherwise, you will have a demon child, plus a squawking baby needing diaper changes, feedings, etc. at your home during your work hours. Not the a-hole. Your family are guilting you because none of them can be asked to take care of the son either. Sorry this is happening to you, OP, but stand your ground. You're 100% right. Sounds like your brother and sister-in-law have become entitled to your help and forgotten what it's like to be solely responsible for your kid, so they've begun relying on your help. But as you so rightfully pointed out, this is totally a them problem. Your parents are probably joining in because they know if you stop looking after Kyle altogether, they'll be relied on a lot more. Also, about your outburst, yeah, maybe not the best way to react, but they pushed you to breaking point and you snapped. Also, they were being rude and unreasonable in their expectations, so I don't expect you to respond 100% calmly and rationally either. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not splitting my daughter's college fund? When my 42 female daughter's 17 female was 7, we lost her father to an avoidable accident. Due to that and a subsequent settlement, my daughter was able to have a trust fund of sorts that provided for college, grad school if she wanted, and even some left over for whatever life might bring. It is money that, if managed wisely, would enable her to have a head start in life. She knows about this, and is never taken for granted given where the money came from. After all, we'd both rather have her father around than the money. That said, life moves on, and I remarried 6 years after my husband's passing to a lovely man who has 2 children of his own, 17 female and 13 male. All of the children live with us primarily, with his children seeing their mother on vacations as she lives across the country. This year, both our girls are graduating and should be headed to college. My daughter was admitted to her dream school last year and is ecstatic about it. Her father was an alumnus, and she has this old sweatshirt of his that she kept to remind her of him. She cried so much when she got in, and both her stepfather and I were proud of her because she worked hard to get in. My stepdaughter will also be attending a wonderful school that is one of the top-ranked schools for her interests. The problem now arises with the money to pay for stepdaughter's school, because her parents cannot afford to pay the tuition in its entirety. Stepdaughter will have to take some loans. All told, she will graduate with about $40,000 in loans, which I think is still quite modest for the school she's attending, and her earning prospects post-graduation. But my daughter will graduate debt-free, and for my husband, this is suddenly a problem. He wants us to split my daughter's fund between all 3 kids, because then they could all probably have college fully paid for. My daughter won't have much left over, and will definitely need to borrow for grad school, which she has expressed interest in attending. But according to my husband, that's okay because everyone will start off on an equal footing post-college. I think this is unfair to my daughter because 1, her father had to die for this money, and 2, this is like her inheritance from him. My husband thinks that they are all siblings and she should be happy to share the money with them if it means giving her siblings a head start in life. I absolutely do not want to put her in the position of being guilted into saying yes if she doesn't want to. I've expressed all of this to my husband and he thinks that I'm being selfish, that I'm teaching my daughter to be selfish, and I obviously don't consider my stepkids the same as my daughter. Am I the a-hole for wanting to protect my daughter's trust for her as it was intended? Edited to add, since I've seen this a few times already, both kids do have college funds but somewhat smaller because my husband and his ex got their finances in order later in life. So there is some money, but with the caliber of the school that stepdaughter will be attending, she will still need some loans to cover costs. I haven't brought up going to a cheaper school because that will be a fresh set of problems given where my daughter will be matriculating. Now for the top comments. Info. This is a difficult situation to judge as written. My question for you is this. Who has paid for your daughter's needs since you and your husband married? Has he contributed at all to her food, clothing, shelter, school-related expenses, extracurriculars, family trips, etc.? Or were those expenses borne solely by you and or the fund? Because if your current husband has contributed to his stepdaughter's expenses, I can see how he might think, I've spent thousands supporting this young woman over the years, money that could have come from her fund. Both my husband and I paid for things, because we both have careers and didn't nickel and dime in one another about who was buying what for whose kid. Not the a-hole. That settlement was for your deceased husband's children, not your future children, and certainly not someone else's. I agree, not the a-hole. The money is for your deceased husband's children, not your current husband's children. Keep your stance. This is your daughter's money from her father. The other children have money from their father. To me, your current husband is the a-hole for even suggesting it. Right? This needs to be nipped in the bud and not even open for discussion. OP. This is her inheritance from her father. It is from his death. Circumstances stole her father from her. I am not going to take away what he was able to give her. This is not open for discussion. Also, $40,000 is not that bad, and if she doesn't want that, she can go elsewhere. That's not necessarily for you to bring up, but her father should. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my son my car to pay off his debt? Let's start from the very beginning. Over 20 years ago, I divorced my then wife. I had 2 kids with her, my oldest son and my youngest daughter. I always had a very good relationship with my son. He was my one and only. At age 17, my son moved in with me and my girlfriend. I always try to get my daughter to move in too, but she refused. I tried to make it nice for us, but soon I realized that having another mouth to feed was emptying my bank account faster than I could see. I soon jumped from workplace to workplace and asked all my friends for money which I barely was able to pay back. So, I started asking my son for money. He paid for groceries here and there over the years. Then he helped me with some bills and even got a credit card on his name for us to use, since I couldn't get one due to my debt. It went well for a few years, but still my money was always on the low. I forgot to pay my car insurance for a few months and they ended my contract. So I created a new one with my son's name on it. I asked him, of course, as always, so he always knew what he was getting himself into. Soon, he moved out and moved in with his girlfriend. She was a very nice girl, or so I thought. He soon asked me to pay him back some money since now he had some credit card debt. He did the math and it summed up to around $10,000. I really didn't have that kind of money and he knew that, and he soon went no contact. He visited me and we talked normally for some time. Then he started asking me for my car. He asked me if I could give him my car so he could sell it to pay off his debts. I told him no immediately. I needed a car for my new job since it was in the neighboring city. He told me to take the train and bus and that there were cheap tickets and my job could help me get a permanent ticket. I told him that I couldn't do that. That was at the end of 2021. I told him if I didn't have the money for his debt until January of 2022, he could have a car. After that conversation, he went no contact again. January came and I didn't have the money. I really couldn't bring it up and I told him that. He asked me about my promise and a car, but I know I didn't promise him anything. I told him I still need a car. We had a long fight over the phone in which his girlfriend said that a loving father wouldn't do something like that to his son, with which she meant all the money I took from him. And with that statement, she was dead to me. I got diagnosed with depression due to the situation. I do regret my mistakes, but I think he made me suffer enough. I miss my son, but until he apologizes for treating me like this, I don't want to have anything to do with him either. I feel so torn. My daughter isn't there for me either. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole and the worst kind of deadbeat. He's worse than a deadbeat. He's racking up debt in his son's name and refusing to pay him back. There's a 0% chance the son's credit card debt isn't related to Opie's spending. I like how it's also somehow the new girlfriend's fault, who Opie thought was a nice girl, that the son doesn't want to be financially used anymore. I was waiting for why she wasn't nice. Oh, she dared stand up for her son. Jeez, you're the a-hole, Opie. I'm the daughter and my father, Opie, sent me this post so I can defend him in the comments. I won't be doing that though, lol. Please take this deadbeat to court and use this post as evidence he agreed to pay your brother back. Let me tell you something. My brother took my father to court together with a computer firm. My father bought an $800 screen under my brother's name but couldn't pay for it, so the company sued my brother. He then went to a lawyer to show him other things he's done under my brother's and even my name, things I didn't even know about. He could clear his name and is now going to court with a company against my father. Your father is a trash. I'm sorry you and your siblings have a selfish mooch of a father. Last story. Am I the a-hole for calling the police when the people I was babysitting for would not answer their phone? Hi, I'm 14 and I babysit for a few people in my neighborhood. On Friday, I was babysitting for a couple that moved into the city from the south. They're only a block from my house, so my parents were okay with me staying there until 10 as they said they would be home by 9. They did not get home at 9. At 9:45, I started texting them to see if they were on the way. Then I called my parents. My mom came over because I was getting worried. It had snowed pretty bad on Friday and they weren't answering. At 11:30, we phoned the police as I was freaking out. The police got their names and address and I guess found their license plates like that. They found them in about 25 minutes. They were at their friend's house. They called me and they were mad that I called the police. I promise, I wouldn't have called the police if they had answered my texts or calls, and my mom was concerned as well. I didn't call to get them in trouble. I was worried. But they told my mom that I'm not mature enough to be babysitting if that's how I'm going to behave. I feel kind of bad that the police made them come home from their friend's house. But I think that they should have answered the phone. What if there was something wrong with their kids? Not the a-hole. The parents were taking advantage of you. You did everything you should have, including trying to reach them, contacting your mother, and then contacting the police. You've done nothing wrong. The parents are angry at being caught out on bad behavior. Yes, this was the epitome of maturity. Opie had valid reasons to be worried. They were the jerks here, not you, OP, and not your mom. If they were responsible parents, they would have answered your calls. Or, gasp, gotten home on time as promised? Don't let them get you. Not a-hole. 1. You are a literal child. 2. They gave you an undertaking and failed to keep it or inform you. 3. You attempted to contact them first. 4. You sought advice from an adult, your mom. 5. They disrespected not only you, but your parents who were comfortable allowing you out until 10, not early midnight. 6. You had no option to just go home when they didn't show, because you were still responsible for their children. They're a-holes, and you should warn other babysitters off them. Not the a-hole OP. But for clarity, I think they only phoned police at 11:30. It then took 25 minutes for police to locate them. At the very least, it would be another half hours for them to be home because police are gonna do a quick interview there and then, before releasing them home. It's gonna be well after midnight. Never babysit for them again, OP. Not the a-hole. 3 things. 1. You said they moved to your city from the south. I assume you mean a state that doesn't get a lot of snow? I live in Canada, and when it snows here, the people who have lived here their entire lives forget how to drive. They could have been in an accident. 2. They were jerks for not giving you the phone number of the place they were going to be. Cell phones run out of power and get left in purses. They should have given you contact information. 3. You got advice from your mom. You didn't do this without thinking it through, or out of spite. You had legitimate concerns, and they were enough for your mom to agree that calling the police was a good idea. You did the exact right thing. They were upset because a 14-year-old girl was more responsible than they were.